Welcome, I'm Faiz Rahman and this is Cafe DC. Today we have a guest here, a prominent Pakistani American who has been involved in lots of important activities and activism for Pakistan and the Pakistani American community. Mr. Adil Shah, who is the founding president of US Pakistan Business Council, is also an author. Adil Saab, thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So let's start with the US Pakistan Business Council because that council is very important in many ways because it not just deals with the trade relations with Pakistan, helps lobby with the Congress on some trade issues, but it has been hosting prime ministers, presidents, ministers on different important issues in this capital, Washington, D.C. So how did it come about? What was the idea behind it? Since you were the founding president and since then have been very actively involved, how does it help businesses in Pakistan?
Thank you, Faiz. The idea actually came into being with Dr. Chaudhry, Dr. Chauhan.
Dr. Chaudhry, because Chaudhry is a very common name.
Sorry, yeah, Dr. Riaz Chaudhry.
Oh, Riaz Chaudhry. Yeah, he's from Louisiana.
Louisiana, and Dr. Bhutta from
I think back then he was president of APNA.
Yes, he
was. The doctors'
Yes,
organization. Yes,
he was. And they brought me into picture and they wanted me to lead the council. So we launched it out of the US Pakistan Business Council. We ran it for 1 year. And Senator Brownback and Dr. Taur Rahman, they inaugurated the council at the Senate building. This was like June 2001.
Just to clarify, this council is basically under the umbrella of US Chamber of Commerce.
Now it is.
Yeah.
After 2001, then US Chamber came to us and we talked about it. And then we actually became affiliate member of U.S. Chamber
so first
of Commerce.
It started as an independent organization and then the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is an important entity. They basically took it under their wings.
Exactly.
And since then it's been operating.
Now it is hosted by them and they organize it and they manage the entire council.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So how, again, going back to what you were saying about how does it help Pakistani businesses?
It has two objectives from my point of view. One was to bring the American Pakistani into mainstream because we have several community-based organizations. So taking the US Pakistan community into the mainstream, that's number one. And second, we wanted to be a bridge between US and Pakistan from economic point of view and as well as building a relationship. We always believe that economy is the factor which drives the relationship between US and Pakistan. And if we, through this council, bridge the gap, which can deliver the technology and management in Pakistan.
I think
that was the
there
idea.
Are several issues, several trade issues in Pakistan, and there are Pakistani businesses and politicians as well. They think that they're not really getting proper attention in terms of quota, textile quota, which is like a big, huge factor. So your council and your own person have been able to basically, help on those issues, especially textile quota, because that's been hurting a lot of Pakistani businesses in Pakistan.
Yeah, that point is basically dealt by the government, but we support them into the US market, US government, based as a private organization. And we hosted, President Musharraf, Shaukat Aziz Saab, Nawaz Sharif Saab, and many ministers and prime
Benazir
ministers.
Bhutto, and
Yes.
it's a very prominent organization, and I think it's at least it's a non-governmental organization. So in my opinion, it's filling a very good blank in a way that it serves as a buffer between the two governments and lobbies on both sides of the aisle, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean. It's a platform. You can use it. The government of Pakistan can use it. The leading industrialists and trade offices in Pakistan, they can use it. They can learn through it, from it, and do the lobbying as well. So there are multiple facets you can use it. And government of Pakistan had been invited many times, and they use that platform to do the lobbying work and access to the American industries and business community.
And it's a very high-profile organization even in the American business community. For example, when you became the founding president of the organization, and later you became the vice chairman of the organization. Chairman of the organization was the Coca-Cola CEO.
Right.
So, which is like one of the largest companies in the world. So we got, I mean, the Pakistani American community as well as Pakistan business issues got that kind of attention in this U.S. business community.
Correct. Ahmed Bojer he was a very passionate about Pakistan. At that time he was president, and then I acted as a vice chairman because I had a passion to grow this thing, and he had a name, and we worked together for 4 years. And after that, they have a system through which they appoint new chairman and vice chairmen.
Adil, being a businessman yourself, an activist, an author, you write. The contours of U.S.-Pakistan relations have been many, and trade is one of them. But the complaints out there in the business communities on both sides is that the business issues haven't gotten that kind of attention as the military and political issues have. Do you think, as an activist, moving forward, both leaders, leaders from both countries, should rather focus on business and trade issues to move the relationship forward rather than just getting stuck with the very nasty political issues?
I fully agree with you. Our focus has always been the corporate side, the industries and trade. And we believe wholeheartedly that if you push the economy in the right direction, it goes up north, then many people can be resolved. Many issues can be resolved. We understand completely the military issue is very critical because of the regional location of Pakistan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But if you actually want to put together the economic forum and move the players into it, then Pakistan will have to provide security to any American business coming in, whether it is Pakistani-based, Pakistani region, or actual American. The law and order issue is what basically disturbs the whole system. And we have delivered many companies into Pakistan. In fact, I was part of it. But because of law and order situation, we were not able to succeed in our projects. So, yes, you're right. The focus has to be economic development, but then it comes back to the law and order situation.
Adil, here we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about Adil Shah's book, Sandstorm, which is about digital leadership and some other issues. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Okay, so we were talking about his book and his ideas of digital leadership. I think when we were talking just before the show, you said the times and the era of big, huge leaders is gone. You can't expect anything, but apparently it seems as if the world wouldn't see very large, larger than lives and huge leaders anymore. And to mobilize the masses, digital revolution and digital technologies are the way to go. And one of them is, of course, social media. So talk about this book here, Sandstorm, that you have written with one of your colleagues, Shahryar Safdar. And so enlighten us on what you think of this digital leadership.
Well, the crux of the book is it has two ideas. In the past history, we always saw that big, huge leaders, they came out and they mobilized the population and brought revolution. So mobilize massive group, you have to have big leaders, But now, because of the social media, digital media, which has kicked into the system, that more or less is good enough to take the idea forward. So I personally think that phenomena has just recently started, where a nation will not need big leaders, to mobilize people, to promote the ideas. For that, the social media will be much more complementary and supplementary to push it forward, then of course after that the management will be done by the leadership.
But there are limits to this technology. For example, if you take the case of Pakistan, for example, the penetration of internet is not huge. So when you talk about social media and that aspect of the technology causing some kind of a change, do you think is it a little bit premature, at least for those developing societies?
Of course, it's not fully functional in those areas, but it has its own effect. In case of Pakistan, people have cell phones, they receive SMS, they watch TV, So they use Facebooks. They are in millions now. So it doesn't have to go all the way down to the last man, but if it can cause a major effect, that creates a vacuum for the leaders actually, and then it creates a leader-less revolution, where people can use the idea and go forward. But at the end of the day, of course, you need a leader which can really direct them in a specific area.
Mobilizing is one thing,
Yeah.
but giving a distinct direction for a cause is something else.
Yeah, that segment is still there. It has to be there. But the biggest issue is that how do you mobilize people? Here, digital media comes in play. And it does a great work, just like the Tehreek Square, where the social media in Middle East caused havoc in that area. So the digital media has its own effect now. Before it was not available in
But
in
I
history.
think it can also create some delusions in leaders' minds. This some people. I mean, it has happened in case of Pakistan that people thought that just because somebody has so many millions of fans on Facebook, he can go in and change the face of the country. But that didn't happen.
Well, a leader should calculate those things. You should not live in illusion. If I were the leader, I would not take just social media and think that I have a bigger constituency. So I don't think somebody should make that kind of mistake.
So what you're saying is, yes, of course, digital media, social media, does have a role to play, but it has to be complemented properly with a charismatic leader.
Yes.
So that leader, again, you do need proper leadership. It's not so the media will fill in some aspects of that leadership, but do you actually need one? You do need one leadership which is effective.
Of course, the need of leadership is not going anywhere. But to complement that, to mobilize it, to expedite it, that's where the technology plays its role. So it boosts the idea, and it covers the mileage very quickly. Let's say if you go in the back in the history, somebody has started with some idea somewhere in the village and whatnot. It took like 20 years to introduce the idea, but now it can happen in like 12 months.
I mean, to be devil's advocate, Adil,
Sure.
what we've seen in the case of Arab Spring, it hasn't gotten anywhere actually. I mean, you saw two revolutions, one after another in Egypt. Egypt is not an ideal case right now, and so I mean, it's yes, it is. It's helping to mobilize concepts and ideas, but don't you think it's also creating? Again, I'm being devil's advocate here. It's also creating chaos because now everybody has an opportunity to introduce anything, good, bad, the ugly, whatever the idea can be. It has a chance to go and be popular among the masses. But don't you think that's also contributing to the chaos overall in those regions?
Absolutely. Tool which has power could be used either way. You can have a bad idea, you can expedite that through the media. You have a good idea, you can expedite that. Now, when you're alluding to the Middle East part, just idea does not work. Then you have to train your people as well. In case of Egypt had never been the democratic society. So you did not transform your community towards liberation towards democracy. You just brought the democracy and superimposed on them, and that system, it's
Yeah, that's
not
what basically I
natural.
was alluding to, that, these technologies have the chance to introduce good ideas, but without proper preparation,
Yeah.
without putting proper primers in place. And of course, Egypt is definitely one example. But in case of Pakistan, Pakistan is not. Pakistan has always been a democratic, some kind of a democratic dispensation, whether under a military dictator or not. You have seen basic democracies. You have seen local municipal systems. So people have had chance to basically express themselves in one way or another. Even before partition, I mean, India, the British India was like more a very not volatile, but some very active society. So, but again, what is lacking in Pakistan that Pakistan hasn't seen that kind of change so far?
Well, this is a pretty loaded question.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you're right. People in Pakistan, by nature, they're democratic. Right from the village, people talk to each other. They do consult. They have different type of systems locally.
Yeah, you have jirga, you have
Yeah.
panchayat. People sit around a charpai
Right.
and then thrash out their issues. So
But the social media or digital media, it gives an opportunity to the leaders to take those ideas and refine it and then deliver that in the country. You cannot do that in a haphazard manner. Pakistan lacks because the ideas are not refined. Some of the Pakistani society has been built on a wrong axis, wrong ideas. Once you build the society on wrong ideas, it becomes very difficult and challenging to break it and refix it. So Pakistan will have to go through its own social refinement. That hasn't happened yet. Democracy is a case in point. This is not a democracy. Verbally, yes. Practically, it is not. It doesn't go all the way to the people. People are not empowered to make decisions. It is the leadership which used to forcefully use them. Now they have a legitimate way to use it through
isn't it
democracy.
the case basically in developed countries as well? I mean, yes, there's a small group, whether Congress or Parliament, they make all the decisions. People don't really have this direct power to influence everything. Of course, they can lobby their members of Congress, their member of Parliament.
I think, and there is no authentic statistic saying how many people we have here, but it's a pretty large number. Let's say take 1 million people, and if they only earn $50,000 a year, that makes a pretty big economy.
Yeah, but
The-
that economy, I'm sorry
Yeah,
for the interruption,
yeah, sure.
but suppose if 50,000 is the average income in the community, but it's not like the income which is being put aside.
Yeah.
They're spending almost each and every dollar of that income here in this country.
That only reflects the strength of the economy. I'm not saying they will drop $50 billion in Pakistan. It's a strength. Now, it's not just money. Pakistani diaspora living in US, UK, and other part of the world, they're untapped, especially in USA. US people, Pakistani living in US can offer 3 things. 1, capital. 2, education. 3, training. All these things combined can revamp the entire Pakistan just by Pakistani community living in US, let alone UK and other countries. However, the diaspora is untapped, number 1. Number 2, Pakistani diaspora does not have a proper organization which is credible to transfer all these things, deliver that in Pakistan. Until unless
So
you
you
have
don't have
that
the
structure.
mechanism to do anything, basically. I mean, you can.
It's all sporadic, and it's all here and there. Sending remittance is not enough. If you have a proper structure through which you can mobilize Pakistani living in USA, and there has to be an authentic, a well reputable organization in Pakistan, they can tap into the diaspora community, and then they can ask them to deliver capital, education, and training. That is exactly what you're missing in Pakistan.
Capital, education, and training. Okay, but see, you have seen some very prominent Pakistanis as well as Pakistani Americans playing very important role in Pakistan. Currently, a former British MP is governor of Punjab, Chaudhry Sarwar.
Right.
We have had Moin Qureshi going from Washington, D.C., this area, and becoming Prime Minister of Pakistan. We have had Mr. Shaukat Aziz, who was in America before he went and became the Prime Minister of Pakistan. So you have seen, and many others. I mean, even Shahid Javid Barki was a finance minister. So at different levels, you have seen these roles being played by Pakistani Americans. So what failed us? I mean, what really happened that we haven't been able to transform these relations into a solid mechanism? Somewhere we can say that yes, this is the diaspora. These are the institutions that will play roles in Pakistan, and Pakistan can certainly benefit from those roles. So what failed here?
Well, Faz, it will take another 15 minutes to describe
Try
that.
your best in few
but
minutes.
I'll give you in few minutes.
Yeah.
The people, gentlemen, you have pointed out, like Qureshi Saab and Sarwar Saab and Barki Saab, they very effective people, but they played their role at the macro level. Individual here, individual there. The effort has to be well coordinated, well thought through, and it has to start from the bottom. Not necessarily from the village, but you have to come to some level, to certain level. That's where you put all these people together, put a structure to it, and it has to be very credible. It cannot be a government structure because the trust is not there, and that's the fact.
Private.
It's a purely private structure, but the private people has to be so credible that Pakistani living in the USA can actually trust.
So going back to your organization, U.S.-Pakistan Business Council, do you have a counterpart in Pakistan where this kind of effort can start on a private level?
Not directly. U.S.-Pakistan Business Council cannot have a counterpart. They can have relationship with them, but they don't.
So why didn't you try one to establish something like that?
The council does. Associations and council don't get into those things. Their role is as a platform, to providing a platform. But let's say to educate people.
Yeah, but the criticism, sorry, I'm cutting you off,
Sure.
but see, the criticism is that the consuls on these organizations, they just enjoy the presence of these high-profile guests from Pakistan. They come, dine with them, lunches with them and everything, and then they go back, everything kind of, falls flat. Nothing comes out of those dinners and lunches.
The council leadership is immune to those things. I mean, they don't care who comes in or not. But if you don't receive it in Pakistan, you're not going to get anything from here. When you come to USA as a business leader or whoever, you need to know exactly what you want from us. You know exactly what you want. You cannot be elusive, and you cannot be talking something which makes no sense. If you know exactly what you want, you'll find exactly the people who can work with you.
Time's up. We can't talk anymore. You heard this discussion. I think some valid points raised by our guest here today, Adil Shah. But it will take probably another few days before we can come to a conclusion what the community can do for Pakistan and for itself in this country. Thank you for watching another episode of Cafe DC. I'm Faz Rahman. Please watch us next week, same time, same place.